Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. Welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And back on the show again is my pal Foster from SiftPop. So, Foster, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit for those who haven't met you on the show before, and shamelessly plug whatever you'd like to shamelessly plug.
Sure. I'm Foster. I'm one of the other writers at SiftPop with Shane. So I have reviews that come out every so often over there. As far as plugging things, I have a Twitter. I don't really do much on it, but that would be the place where you could contact me, I guess. My DMs should be open. And then I have a letterbox, which I use all the time, logging everything I see, making lists, all that jazz. Those are both FOSTH101, but you could probably type my name and it'll pop up just the same.
There you go.
That rhymed unintentionally.
I saw that you logged the King of Comedy. So
Yes.
just in time.
Last night.
Yeah, so and then actually I'm curious. So what was your most recent review or article that came out for SiftPop?
Spencer was my most recent one. Although Come On should be coming out like today or tomorrow or something.
Awesome. Did you get to see that like with its release, or did you get to see that because you did the New York Film Festival, right?
Yeah, I didn't get like a pass or anything, but in my head I always thought it was just like some elite thing, but really you can just buy tickets like any other movie. You have to wait in a little queue, but so I got tickets for Tragedy of Macbeth and for The Power of the Dog. So those are the only two, because this is the first time I did it. I was only doing a couple movies, but yeah.
My hope is at one point, because like I live like 15 minutes from Philly, is to do the Philly Film Festival. I almost did, but the tricky thing is it's like trying to be, because a lot of it this year remotely was during the week, and I'm like, I'm gonna be working. So it's kind of like, is it worth it? But you do what you can. But I'm excited for Come On, because whenever that makes its rounds. But kind of alluding to what we're going to be starting off with the show is our first segment is coming attractions. So, Foster, what's the one film coming out for the 26th, or kind of broadly the week of Thanksgiving, because they're releasing films on Wednesday. The Beatles thing's coming out Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But what are you most looking forward to?
I'm most looking forward to Licorice Pizza, the new movie from Paul Thomas Anderson. I think that trailer is delightful, and it makes me smile every time it comes on. And I like how dorky it looks, and I like the two leads. They just look, I don't know, not cool. But I don't know. I can tell it's going to be like one of those movies I watch and then get slightly emotional because it's a little too real. It reminds me a little bit of like Richard Linklater's stuff, like Dazed and Confused or Everybody Wants Some, kind of in that vein. Yeah. Every time the trailer comes on, I'm into it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that film too. And like, it's kind of going without saying that I think most film fans on the internet are fans of Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah.
So, and I'm looking forward to seeing Bradley Cooper going crazy.
Yeah.
He sure does, based off of the trailer.
Yeah, Barbara Streisand, right?
Which it's interesting because like Paul Thomas Anderson kind of flutters between like obviously like very human kinds of things. Like this just seems like kind of slice of life, coming of age kind of story. And then you have things like There Will Be Blood. So, which I'm a huge fan of. That's my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film. So I'm looking forward to that as well. I'm going a little bit more melodramatic, a little bit more over the top, a little bit Italian. I'm going with House of Gucci. And so, especially after how much I loved The Last Duel, I'm like, okay, Ridley Scott, I'm even more excited about House of Gucci. And then that trailer came out, and I'm just like, this movie looks so extra, and I love it. And like everybody doing their most obnoxious Italian accents. I'm just, it's just, I hope it's sleazy. I hope it's just all kinds of like everybody's just absolutely despicable, because that's the vibe I'm getting from this, and I'm going to enjoy it. So that's definitely why I'm excited about House of Gucci.
Yeah. Is there a person that you're most looking forward to seeing in the cast?
That's a thing, because like obviously Lady Gaga really made an impact with Star is Born, but like how can't you be a fan of Adam Driver right now?
Yeah.
Like he's just killing it in everything.
Hmm.
And then pulling Al Pacino out and throwing him in there too. But I think a lot of people are looking for Jared Leto, who apparently Al Pacino didn't even recognize him popping up and randomly calling him Papa on set.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Al Pacino's never heard of Jared Leto in general, but
Well, the thing is, apparently he knows who Jared Leto is. He didn't
okay.
like because like Jared Leto was just doing his method acting
No,
thing,
I
and
know.
it's
I'm
just
just imagining Al Pacino just like, oh,
like, oh,
coasting through.
who are you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really, I know people really rag on Jared Leto because he's a nut, but uh, I don't know. When he goes all in a movie, it's pretty entertaining. So
Yeah. And like, I don't know if this is going to be a great film. I don't know if this is going to be best picture worthy. Could be. Ridley Scott's
mhm.
done it before, but like, I just want to have fun with this because it definitely looks like it. And then, but will it be 2 hours and 37 minutes of fun?
Yeah,
Because when released the runtime for, I'm like, oh, it's a little hefty
yeah.
because they were having 8 o'clock screenings of it this past Thursday, and I was tempted, but my fiance wants to see it too, and she would not have made it
Hmm.
for 3 hours plus with all the trailers and Nicole Kidman's little BS
Yes.
ad.
I've seen that 500 times.
Would it kill them to get like a handful of actors
I
and
know.
rotate them?
She's kind of scary. She like looks into your eyes as she's talking, because here they are about the movies.
Yeah, and then some of the lines are just so stupid.
Yeah,
Like,
heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
it doesn't.
I know. Also, what is she doing? She's in an empty theater and she's seeing like 10 different movies just like
Yeah,
play
like,
before her, and she's just loving it.
yeah. And then I won't get into it too much, but her inconsistent accent towards the end bothers me every single
Yeah.
time. What happened? Why is there a hard ER on Better but not Feeders? I don't get it. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're actually here to talk about Scorsese, and we're here to talk about the King Comedy. So, Foster, what about this one made you want to come on to the show to talk about the King of Comedy?
Really just because I like it. That's the answer.
There we go.
I think it's a great movie. This is only my second time watching it, because uh, most movies I've only seen once, because I'm always going through and trying to knock more movies off the list that I feel like I'm supposed to have seen. It's a very long list and it keeps getting longer. And this was one of them a few years ago, probably around Joker, because of course there's a lot of parallels there, and I heard people talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I watched it like a month or two after Joker came out, maybe. Sounds about right. Really loved it. And this was my first time watching it since. So
It's interesting because this is also my second time watching it. And like I remember getting a lot out of it, but I'm watching it with my fiance and she started asking me questions. I'm like, you know what? I don't quite remember this movie scene to scene.
yeah.
So I'm like, we're watching this fresh. So, but it's such an interesting because like obviously I've been going through all of Scorsese's filmography, and this is his fifth collaboration with De Niro at this point, because you have Mean Streets, you have Taxi Driver, New York, Raging Bull, and then this. And this is by far the most un-De Niro kind of thing, and also horrendous hair and mustache. But it just captures the whole entire character, right?
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts on De Niro's performance in the film?
So hot take coming in right here. This is my favorite De Niro performance, I think. I really like him in this. I won't say it's his best because I
Mhm.
feel like you have to say it's probably Raging Bull or something like that. Taxi Driver, Godfather. I mean, now there's a million, but like I just this is one, like you said, I watch it and I just like I can't believe this is the same man. I just love having that feeling. It's very fun for me. Like he's funny, he's uncomfortable to watch.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just think he's great in it.
It's really interesting because watching this with my fiance Jess, she got so creeped out by the point where he's like pretend hosting and he
Yeah.
has like Liza Minnelli and Jerry like the cutouts and he like kisses him on the cheek and he's just like the moment where he just like ah, just starts laughing
Yeah.
uncontrollably and just like
Yeah.
this is all kinds of like it's really impressive De Niro doing all like there's quite a few moments in this film where like he's acting to himself
Hmm.
and they're so great, but it's so sad and
Yeah.
creepy and just unnerving in so many different ways because like this film never overtly says that he has mental health issues, but like
Yeah.
it's pretty evident that there's something wrong here. And like seeing him doing all these interactions with himself and like this would I jokingly give some films the Colin Robinson stamp of approval for energy vampires
Hmm.
because like this movie is so uncomfortable in so many places. The specific part where like he and like the woman he really likes, who he tricks into thinking that they got invited to
Yeah.
Langford's house, and that whole entire thing where he's trying to negotiate, and I'm just like, no, this is so uncomfortable and weird. Why are you
Yeah.
at this man's house? And just all of that is, and like De Niro's so committed the whole entire time.
Yeah. That country house scene when I don't think I've ever felt more uncomfortable for a person than is it Rita when she's slowly realizing, oh no, they don't know each other and we're just in Jerry's house. It's so
And she's
yeah.
like pleading with him. I'm like, I didn't know anything about this. I am so sorry. And Rupert's still trying to be like negotiating him listening to his tapes. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting because like Jerry Lewis is such an interesting person to cast in this movie
Mhm.
because basically the only two things that I really know Jerry Lewis from is like one, the Nutty Professor, and which 100% convinced he was just trying to be Dean Martin
Mhm.
when he's Buddy Love. But and like his shows with Dean Martin and stuff like that. And him in this film is very it's a very interesting performance, and a lot of it's just reactions. Like when he's all taped up
Oh my gosh.
at the
Yeah,
dining room table and just the dead stare that he
I
has
know.
in reacting to the craziness as his like stalkers like flirting with him and
She
trying to
starts
seduce.
singing. It's I just want to like crawl under the table.
I'm sure he wanted to, but he couldn't move. And he's just sitting there like, which like
Yeah.
it seems like he's doing nothing, but he's saying so much
Hmm.
with just that stare. Um, I guess Foster, what are some of your favorite moments from the film that really stick out to you?
So with Jerry Lewis, the one that stands out is I think it's like 5-10 minutes into the movie, when Rupert's kind of following him up the stairs into
Mhm.
the office, and he's trying to promote himself, and Jerry just keeps like, good, good, with the pride and joy card. That was good. Okay, thank you. You can tell he just wants out. He gives him a thumbs up at one point, and it
Yeah.
just feels like the most sarcastic thing. Yep, good. Call
Most
call call my person at the front desk, you know,
Yeah,
it's
so
you just want to
condescending.
crawl under a rock because you know, I don't know how you crawl under a rock. I might have just made up an expression there, but like,
Pull a Patrick Star.
yeah, you can tell like Rupert is just not getting it. It's so uncomfortable how unaware he is of the way he's coming across.
Well, and that payoff during that scene at Jerry's like summer home, where he just straight up tells him like, "I told you that to get away from me." And I think one of the things that I appreciate most about that character of Jerry is he's very real in
Mm-hmm.
the fact that like he's not trying to kid anybody and be like the most likable guy around. He's like, I'm a guy, I'm a human being. I don't want to deal with this crap. And
Mm-hmm.
like him admitting like people do this all the time, guy, to everybody. Take the hint. And the worst part is Rupert keeps saying, like, I get the hint, I get the hint. It's like, no, you don't. You really don't.
Yeah.
You don't get it. But
And then there's also, I don't know if we've talked much about these, the parallel between him in his basement or whatever, his mother's basement, like acting out scenes, and then the imagined version of what
yes.
he's thinking in his head. Those are fantastic. Like I think the first one is him having an imaginary dinner with Jerry. It's easy because his character and his real name is Jerry, so
Yeah.
I don't need to go back and forth. Jerry, like the way Jerry acts in that scene is so different than the way he acts when you actually see the real Jerry too. And then similarly, when Robert De Niro's in the basement, you know, he's talking like this, Jerry, you know, it's like really over the top. And then when we're seeing the imagined version at the dinner table, it's like he's calm and cool. You know, the waitress comes over and she says she wants him to sign the thing, and he's like, "Oh, what's your name, sweetheart?" or something. She's like, "Dorothy." He's like, "Oh, that was my father's name," making a joke.
Well, and it's like thinking about Scorsese's filmmaking in this particular film, because it's not like a lot of his, especially more recent films before this, because Raging Bull and Taxi Driver, there's a lot of bold filmmaking. And I was looking into it, and Scorsese wanted to make this a little bit more traditional, like old school comedies and stuff like that, with not a lot of real extreme close-ups, a lot of static shots. But like he really flexes his storytelling in those scenes where it's so like the fluidity between going back and forth is so great. And then you have that great shot of Rupert in the basement and his mom's yelling in the background like, "Ma, I'm trying." Like, and like all those moments, like him trying to record his tape, which like
that machine.
that was like he's putting in a lot of effort into really doing these things. His mom's yelling back like, "Mom, I'm trying to record down here."
Yeah.
Like I'm just thinking like Will Ferrell from Wedding Crashers, like, "Mom, meatloaf." But like those moments, and it's funny because I had seen the film before, and like obviously I know how the beats go. And my fiance, when that moment at the dining room table, like that dinner happens, because it starts that way.
Yeah.
And it just seems like they wound up connecting and stuff like that. And she's like, "This is weird." I'm like, "Wait a minute. Wait a second."
Yeah.
And then it cuts to him in his basement, and it's just like, oh, there's a lot of fantasy going on here. And it's very interesting. Like, so if you can remember back to the first time you watched this, did you think he was actually going to be funny when he did his performance in the stand-up?
I have no idea, but I love that they show so much of that stand-up. They show like a 5+ minute uninterrupted take. What did you think?
Well, that was the thing, because honestly, I didn't think he was going to be good.
Yeah.
Like the first time I watched this, I'm like, this is gonna crash and burn. But Scorsese does such an amazing job of building up that suspense too, because he records it, but we don't see it. And then it keeps moving on. I'm like, oh, I guess maybe it's one of those kinds of things where we're never actually gonna see him do it, because you don't really get to listen to his tape. You don't really get to hear him do his actual stand up.
Mhm.
But then that's such a beautiful moment of him leading the FBI agents into the bar
Oh,
where Rita is, and like turning the TV on. I'm like, oh my god, we're actually gonna see it.
mhm.
And they go, and he's like, I'm like, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like I laughed at some of those jokes, and it's just like, also being from like this area, like being
Mhm.
from New Jersey, and like some of those things hit a little bit better. Just like,
Yeah.
and there you go. But and that's such an interesting thing, because it could have very easily been like he was really that delusional. And then I guess you could really think about like, does it really go that way? But I don't think there's, because like he does have a lot of fantasy in this film, but I don't
Mhm.
know if it really hints at like maybe he's just imagining himself being that good or not. But like he definitely got laughs.
Yeah.
And I feel it's so interesting because you get to the end of this film, and well, at the very end, he's there. He has his own show. My God, that suit, suit he's wearing.
Mhm.
But I felt like that ending hit so hard, like today, because if you think about it, it's like this man was in prison for like kidnapping, and yet now he has his own show.
Mhm.
And it's like thinking about, because cancel culture is like one of the biggest things that people talk about at this point. And like I know, especially like last week when they announced that Mel Gibson's going to be directing Lethal Weapon 5 for
Mhm.
HBO Max, and I saw so many tweets from people being like, "Oh, and cancel culture exists."
Mhm.
Because like if anybody was going to be like done in Hollywood, probably would be the person who went on drunken rants about Jewish people to the police on tape.
Mhm.
But Mel Gibson still has a pretty healthy career at this point. He had
Mhm.
nominated for an Oscar since.
Yeah.
And it's just like this dude literally kidnapped a guy, and people are just sitting there loving him doing his late night show now.
Yeah. And it's like you know if this happened in real life, everyone would be talking about it. Like I would like this. What do they say? Like 87 million people watched the clip or something. That sounds right. I mean, I would watch the clip. I'd be curious. Netflix would already be making their true crime documentary about it.
It would be the next Tiger King,
Yeah.
which they're still milking. I haven't gotten a chance to watch the second season of Tiger King
Yeah.
yet, but like, boy, did that soak up all the attention during COVID.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. It's like, especially, I could at least attest for people around my age who are around 30, just eat up true crime like it's nobody's business.
Hmm.
And it's just like, people would love this story. They're like, oh my God. And yeah, the whole entire clip of him actually doing a stand up will go viral. And obviously, because like we were mentioning before we jumped on too, and like you mentioned that you watched this before Joker. Obviously, Joker takes a very different turn, but
Yeah.
like it is very much the same kind of story.
Hmm.
And that like obviously was not done by accident that they got Robert De Niro
Yeah.
to play the Jerry character. But I guess what are some other things about the film, Foster, that like really stick out to you that makes this something that you wanted to go back to, especially after you said like you don't watch a whole lot of films twice. But what are those things that like really stick out about this film that makes it special?
Sure. I do like to rewatch movies. It's just that there's so many new ones that I still haven't seen that it's like
Trust
hard.
me, I get you. I
Yeah.
had a whole entire conversation on my last interview. Because like honestly, and this is definitely a thing, I don't see the same movie in theaters more than once.
Hmm.
There's just too many movies out there for me to
Yeah.
catch up with. I think the most I've ever seen a movie in theaters was probably Endgame, and
Mm.
that was 3 times. And
Yeah.
somebody told me rookie numbers. I'm like, well, how about I tell you how many other times I went to the theater, and we'll see the rookie numbers.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah.
Continue with your point.
But a couple other random things then. Number one, with the ending, I've heard some people, I mean, you can tell me what you think about this, after the show, and then it has that little 2-3 minute montage of the autobiography and the live taping at the very end. Some people think that that is one of his like internal fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think that's really what happened. I don't know that it necessarily matters, but it's an interesting thing to think about nonetheless.
I've also heard similar things about the ending of Taxi Driver.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting either way. Because, like, if it is a fantasy, it makes sense because he sure fantasized a whole lot of things throughout the film. But if it is real and that actually happened, I think the film's more biting in terms of, like, its painting of society and being like, you'd still eat them up. Let's be real here, people. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah. And then as far as why I like the movie overall, I do really love Robert De Niro in it. Like my favorite thing in movies in general is just performances. I just find them very engaging. And so I just think he's so good in this movie. I'm a big fan of like cringe, uncomfortable type comedy. That stuff really works for me. Like
so if this whole movie.
Yeah, if you can really, if you can make me physically like, I don't know, like uncomfortable, then you've done your job. And this movie does it for its entire runtime.
Yeah. It's one of those kinds of things where it's like it pushes you so much that like if you're watching this at home, you literally have to get up, walk into the other room because I'm like, I can't be in this situation anymore.
I know. I'm making noises when I'm watching. I'm like, oh! You know,
I think I did that a couple times yesterday where I'm like, no,
yeah,
no.
Yeah. That whole candlelit scene at the end when he's taped up, we talked about it, that whole one. I'm just so uncomfortable. Yeah, and then she like pushes the stuff off the table.
Sandra Bernhard, who plays that character,
yeah,
she's great in this.
She's so good.
And she's so committed to this performance. And it's so interesting because like last week when I was talking about Raging Bull with my friend Vinny, he brought up how he loved how Raging Bull was a more intimate 3-character kind of thing. Because like a lot of Scorsese films, especially now, are ensemble pieces. And there's just a lot of big name actors and a lot of stuff like that. You have Goodfellas too and Casino. I'm like, this film is very much Rupert and Jerry.
Yeah.
And then the two supporting women that pop up pretty regularly throughout the film, but like this is very enclosed space, and like some of those enclosed spaces you just really wish you wanted to get out of.
Yeah.
But I think that what really sticks out to me, and like I like watching this film again, I even had to look it up because I know this was like a disaster at the box office. It made like $2.5 million on the $19 million budget. Which makes me sad because like I don't think if you asked like what are your favorite Scorsese movies or what are the big Scorsese movies, I don't think most people are going to bring this movie up.
Yeah.
And I have a sinking feeling that a lot of people probably don't know about this movie. And I even tried to look up, I'm like, did De Niro get nominated for an Oscar for this? Because like he's doing so much in this role, and like he's acting like this isn't something that you just see like De Niro doing De Niro, like his like tough guy mobster kind of thing, or criminal or brutish kind of character. I'm like, this guy is awkward and persistent, and like all his little mannerisms, and
it's
like
funny too at parts.
Yeah, and like him sitting there. Is this Cork?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like all those little things and the outrageous outfits that he wears. And like right at the beginning, he's wearing almost the same exact suit as Jerry. Very on purpose. And just the way that he carries himself, just so many little details about his performance.
Hmm.
And like it makes me sad because I feel like especially a lot of people that are younger at this point, it's like, who's Robert De Niro? War with Grandpa? And like, which is funny because when I was a kid, one of the first movies that I ever saw with him in it was the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie
Hmm.
as as fearless leader. But like some of my favorite things, like I watched The Godfather when I was too young, but like I remember him from Godfather Part 2. I watched The Untouchables a lot
Oh
when I was
yeah,
younger.
he's so
And
good.
oh, him as Al Capone is definitely one of my favorite performances. There's no subtlety
Yeah.
at all in that performance, but like boy does he go big. And I would be remiss to say that I didn't go around being like, yo, talking a badge, or him being like, I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to piss on the ashes. And it's so interesting because like that was like a handful of years after this.
Hmm.
And just his range. But like this film, especially because I feel like this probably got a lot more attention because of Joker, which is very interesting because like this movie was a complete box office bomb and Joker made $1 billion.
Yeah.
But I remember watching Joker and just being like, this is Taxi Driver
Yeah.
and the King of Comedy
Hmm.
smashed into a movie.
Yeah.
And like if Todd Phillips was going for making a Scorsese movie, I'm like, well, he did it,
Yeah.
except with the Joker in it.
Hmm.
Which I think is so funny. It's like we could talk on about what Scorsese has to think about comic book movies, but like it's so interesting. Like there is a very successful comic book movie that like is very heavily influenced by this, and it made so much sense
Hmm.
in like the context of it. And I just feel like this film, I feel like if more and more people watched it, would realize like this is a really relevant
Yeah.
and uncomfortably relevant movie today.
Hmm.
So I'm definitely a huge fan of this film, and this is definitely probably one of my favorite rewatches so far,
Hmm.
going through all these because like I've seen Taxi Driver so many
Yeah.
times at this point, and like there's certain things where it's just like I only watched this once, and I had so much more appreciation this time around watching it.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I think it is so uncomfortable is because there's just a little bit of Rupert Pupkin that you can see in yourself. Like who among us has not imagined, like, what if I were being interviewed on a talk show, like when you're in the shower, or like, what if Jimmy Fallon asks me to spin the wheel of impressions, like, I don't know. We all have our little fantasies, and this is just a man who takes it to the next step.
Well, and what was so interesting, because De Niro being De Niro, apparently interviewed his own stalkers
I
to
think I
get
heard that.
ready for this role. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, man, sometimes you got to draw a line when
Hmm.
preparing for a role. It sounds a little dangerous,
Yeah.
but like, it's true because like, I know, like, I've been at baseball games where I've tried to get somebody's autograph before.
Hmm.
Um, Randy Johnson threw a ball up when he was throwing in the outfield when at Veterans Stadium when I was a kid, and Randy Johnson was my favorite player like ever. And he threw the ball up, and some kid threw his arm out and knocked the ball down, and it went in like to the stands below us. And I'm like, and like I've definitely tried to get the autographs and stuff before. My brother has waited outside stadiums for people before, and
Yeah.
it's just like these things happen a lot. Oh,
Hmm.
it's like going near Broadway, everybody just crowding around outside waiting for the performers to come out and stuff like that. And I feel like that's so interesting. The big difference between like the live performance and the recorded performance. Because like you walk out of a movie, unless it's like a premiere, the actors aren't going to be out there.
Hmm.
It's also, this is like a little funny thing. This is why I never clap at movies. I'm like, who are you clapping at?
I know. Who is this for?
I'm like, Nobody who made this movie will hear this. The only person involved is a projectionist, maybe. You did a really good job.
Yeah.
But I think this is such a relevant and interesting film. And you're right, Foster. All of us have had those moments. I definitely have those moments. I'm a daydreamer. Like, I have those moments all the time. Never actually acted on any of them, nor would I kidnap somebody who I idolize. So, like, where Rupert went with it, and apparently paid off. Just had to take 6 years in prison or something first. But any last minute thoughts, comments, Foster?
Sure. One last one. This will be my last thing. I think technically, so I'll preface this with, like, this week I've seen a number of things, I think prompted by the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, like, which I'm of course I'm excited for this movie, like everyone in the world, but just the sort of modern digital cinematography look has like a very washed out, kind of dull color palette, you know, like people were comparing like some of the scenes in No Way Home to like the Raimi or even the Mark Webb movies, and it's like they just look more colorful and vibrant. And so I've been thinking about that a lot this week, and I watched King of Comedy last night, and I'm just looking at the cinematography, and it's full, and it just, the colors are standing out, and the film grain is very nice. You can watch it and be snobby and enjoy that stuff, but like it just is a really nicely composed images all throughout.
Well, and I think it's so important for this film too, because I don't think you would quite capture the actors like the characters' personalities without those rich colors, because there's so much about Rupert with how he dresses. And especially at the end, like I mentioned, that red suit. If that red suit didn't pop, it wouldn't have the same effect. And in general, most of the MCU are pretty drab. And the thing is, it's their conscious decision to try to make things consistent across, which, as somebody who appreciates cinematography and loves stuff like that, I'm just like, but you could have so much vibrance here. But and you know, they definitely use a lot of CGI because, you know, they want to hide some things. Couldn't hide John Cena coming out of nowhere and punching the lizard in It's definitely one of my favorite things the internet did this week. Because who edited that trailer? But anyway, I digress. That's a whole entire other conversation. But moving on then to the last segment is our recommendations. So Foster, what's something you'd like to recommend to all the wonderful people listening and watching?
I won't recommend this to everyone listening and watching, but maybe some people will enjoy this. Midnight Mass on Netflix. This was, at this point, I'm a few months behind, but I think it came out in September. This is Mike Flanagan's newest project. So he did like Haunting of Hill House, I think is the thing that really made everyone take note of him. But he's been doing horror movies for a while. So he did like Oculus. He did Dr. Sleep recently. He did Gerald's Game. Did like the Ouija
Origin of Evil,
right? I still need to see that one, because if I watch it, I feel like I have to suffer through the first one, but at some point I'll do it.
You don't, because I did not. It's a prequel. Like 20 something years beforehand. So like you don't even have to go through the first movie. Luckily.
Good to know. So this is his latest thing he did with Netflix. And it's a mini series. It's 7 episodes. They're an hour each. Basically, the premise is there's a small town that only like a few hundred people, and there's a church in this town, and the priest has disappeared, and a new priest has come to take his place. He's a lot younger, and people don't really know what to make of him, and some drama unfolds over the course of the first few episodes. But of course, because it's Mike Flanagan, there's a horror twist to it, and the show doesn't tell you what the horror elements are for a while, and it's not in the marketing, so I don't want to say it. I will just say that for what I like in movies and shows, I loved it. I thought it was very cool. uh, like it's a show that gets better with each episode as it goes along, and it's genuinely pretty unpredictable. Like you by the end of each episode, you have no idea where it's going because it escalates pretty significantly. I thought this was a fantastic show. There are a couple negatives to have with it, like Mike Flanagan does a lot of monologues, for example, in this in this show in particular, and
Caught me
sometimes
monologuing.
yeah sometimes it's just like it's going on a little bit too long for my liking. Like I'm talking like 5-minute monologues, but that's really the main con. I mean, the acting style is really, really distinct, but it's intentional. Like it's just part of his style. So you either gel with it or you don't, I guess. But I really, really liked this show. And that's my recommend.
I'm a huge fan of Mike Flanagan, and I'm trying to think. I think I've seen all of the things that he's directed, and I'm such a huge fan. And I love Haunting a Hill House. Some of the scariest moments I've ever had watching a movie or a show, definitely in Haunting a Hill House.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely excited for Midnight Mass when I get around to it. So, and I hope all of you horror fans out there make sure to go check it out too. Now, in terms of, I have 2 recommendations. One of them is a rewatch. So it was my birthday a couple of days ago, and I take off for a whole entire day. And I just lay around and watch movies all day. And I picked some of my favorites, and I rewatched The Road Warrior, which I feel bad because, like, ever since Fury Road came out, so like The Road Warrior is my number 2 favorite movie. And then Fury Road came out, and I felt like I had one of those Toy Story moments. I'm like, I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
But like rewatching The Road Warrior and just like in awe of how the hell he did this with all regular people. And like, I have the High Octane set with all the Mad Max films. It has the black and chrome version of Fury Road, and there's a Leonard Maltin intro for The Road Warrior, and I never watched it before, so I put that on, and he was even like, you're sitting in disbelief with how amazing the stunts are in this film. They literally threw a guy 65 feet from a moving car and like spinning, and it's just like didn't die, and you know, all these stunts and stuff like that. And if people couldn't tell by everything branded on my channel, I'm a huge fan of Mad Max, so it's always great rewatching that. So if you haven't seen The Road Warrior, check it out. And the new release I wanted to throw out there was Tick Tick Boom.
Yes.
I was going into the end of the year thinking maybe West Side Story will be dethroned In the Heights as my favorite musical of the year, and then Tick Tick Boom happened, and I'm just like, I was blown away by it. The pure energy that Andrew Garfield brings to this film, and when he's singing and performing, I'm like, get this man a Broadway show. And it was impressive. And the story is very personal and emotional, and Andrew Garfield just killing it. He's had quite a year for himself. I wasn't the hugest fan of Mainstream as like a film, but like
he's so wild in that.
There's no denying that he wasn't amazing in it.
Yeah.
And even with like The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which I'm pretty sure he could potentially get Best Supporting Actor consideration. And you know, maybe he has another film coming out this year, but I don't know. Nor does he. So, but you know, it's such a fantastic performance, and I love Alexandra Shipp. She's so great in it too. Really wasted in the X-Men movies. Sally, and like Vanessa Hudgens, and small little thing seeing Bradley Whitford playing Stephen Sondheim.
He's so fun.
I'm like, yes. And it's such a bold bit of storytelling. It's such an interesting way of telling this story, and I absolutely loved it. So that was a great birthday watch on Friday night when I got home from work. And it's on Netflix. Y'all should check it out.
Yeah, and directed by Lin-Manuel. It's his first thing he's directed.
Which is surprising, because like he has his hands in so many different things. He's having a big year. Into the Heights.
I know.
Encanto comes out next week.
Yeah, he's involved in half of the things that have come out this year, it seems like.
Him and Taika Waititi, I'm pretty sure, are making literally half of entertainment and content at this point. But those are our recommendations for you. That was our discussion of King of Comedy. Next week, I'm going to be doing After Hours with Robert coming in from SiftPop. I'm excited about that because I know how much he loves that film. I've never seen it. So this is one of my last few I've never seen this movie on my Scorsese walkthrough. So looking forward to that. But Foster, thank you so much for coming on and chatting movies with me this week. And you all should check out Foster on Letterboxd and check out his articles on SiftPop.
Thank you.
But thanks again, Foster. And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.